Hi there, I'm Joe Ty, and today I am with my friend and coach and mentor, Gary Ryan Blair, the goals guy. Today I'm gonna let Gary do most of the talking today, but I want to say a few words about why this is so important. Everywhere I go, every organization I work with, and I see this in my own life as well. So many people look in the mirror and they pretend to see less than what's really there looking back at them. And as a result, they give into negative self-talk. They give into low self-esteem. They settle for anemic dreams and goals. They meander through life without being focused. And the challenge is, how do you look in the mirror and see that best self looking back at you, and then do the work to be that best self? How do you, like this little tabby cat, look in the mirror and see the lion you can be and do the work to become that lion? And this is often my screensaver. Have a goal so big that you can only achieve it by becoming a bigger, better, and stronger person yourself. And I don't know of anybody who does a better job of helping people achieve that goal of becoming a better person to achieve bigger goals than Gary. Gary is the author of the best-selling book, Everything Counts, and he is also creator of what, for my money, is by far the best motivational program available anywhere, the 100-Day Challenge. Gary, thank you very much for joining us today. Let's start with this quick question. Gary, you often talk about the importance of one day in the week, in the month, in the year, which is September 22nd. You mind telling us why that day is so important?
I'll be happy to. You may actually just want to bump it right to the next slide so everybody can actually see it as I'm speaking. Well, here's what it is. I mean, it's a significant milestone because it happens year in and year out. It's very predictable. But essentially, it represents the final 100 days of the year. So the best way to look at it is 265 days are down and 100 days ago. The only thing that matters right now is what you're going to do with the last 100 days of the year. What are you going to do to finish the year strong? And obviously, that's what we're going to speak about. We can give everybody some great ideas and some excellent takeaways.
Okay, and here's the slide. This should be really disconcerting to everybody, including me. This year, whatever goals you set for yourself for the year, 3/4 of the year is done. And the question is, how are you doing? Are you 3/4 of where you thought you ought to be? Are you 3/4 of the way toward achieving those goals? I know I'm not, and that means that I have to. Actually, Gary, let me turn it back over to you. What are the 2 words that you think are so important?
But, it's really simple. It's just, are you going to finish strong? And that ultimately really is kind of the mantra, the call to action, the thing that we need to focus in on right now. And there's a couple of parts to this. Let's look at this from the standpoint. If you look at any sporting event, you'll notice that there's always going to be a scoreboard. That's the commonality, regardless if it's baseball, football, basketball, or soccer, or whatever. And whenever you look at that score, it's always going to be in one of 3 positions. And listen, you're going to be winning. You're going to be which means you're ahead of target. You're going to be tied. The game is tied, or essentially you're losing. You're below. Well, whenever you take the temperature, if you will, or keep score, there's 2 things you have to take into consideration: your performance to date, in this case, 265 days, as well as exactly how well did you perform, and look at the correlation between the 2, and then decide what most of us we need to do is decide what we are doing right. And I think no matter who we are, we can all look at our performance, even if we're already ahead of target. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we'll all admit that we could probably have done a better job, been a bit more disciplined, a bit more focused, could have made a few better decisions, and maybe utilized our time a little bit better. And that's not just an attack. I think it's just a statement of fact. And, if you're tied, if you're right on target, that's fine. You're doing the right things. You're getting where you need to be. Bravo. I mean, obviously, the cause and effect relationships in your life are working. However, and I think this is probably the biggest one, if at this stage of your life, and in this stage of the year, 265 days, that you are below target, you're underperforming, and you're not happy with your individual, team, or company performance, what you have to do, and this is a need, this is not a want, what you have to do, you need to accept the reality and realize that your current strategies, your beliefs, your mentality, your execution strategies are not working up to par. They're not driving the results that you wish for. So what that means is you have to make some adjustments. And it's always going to come down to how you execute. And that's obviously what we're going to speak about right now.
Okay, so if I'm like this turkey here, I look in the crystal ball and I'm not where I want to be. I'm not at where I should be to get to the end of the year that I set out on New Year's Eve. What are some of the most important things I should do right now?
Well, you know, the key thing, that's what a lot of people do. They hope and they wish and they dream. But, you know, at the end of the day, hope is really not a strategy, as we're both well aware. So let's have a good look at this. Let's go to the next slide and basically kind of look at one of the key words here in terms of what this is all about. You know, Joe, when you take the time, I mean, we've all heard about the who, what, where, when, how, and why. But let's make it real simple. When it comes to driving results, we really need to concentrate on three questions. You know, what do you want? What are your specific goals? Well, that's not necessarily what we're here to talk about. We want to talk about the achievement part of it. That's what. So first off, going into the end of the year, the first thing you need to do is to identify exactly what is it you need to achieve by the end of the year. The second question is why. That's the fuel, the driver, the motivation. What I'm concerned with, and really what we're going to be talking about with the 100-day challenge, is the how. The how is all about your execution. What are you going to do smarter, faster, more creatively, different, unique, or whatever the case might be? But essentially, what you have to do is you've got to improve your how. So let me go to the next slide and I'll explain why. You know, if you start to look at it, we have to realize that we're all living in a year of behavior, and that the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. So continue on, please. What we'll realize on that is that it's not just what we do that matters. It's really how we go about doing what we do. And what we all have to do is improving our how. As an example, I know you're doing some work in a lot of work in hospitals, predominantly. You must have seen, Joe, the dancing doctor. This one gentleman who dances around, and I forgot where he's located. But do you know what I'm referring to?
Absolutely, and he is amazing.
He's beautiful. I mean, he's just absolutely beautiful. And you go back and even, what was it, Robin Williams movie about that other doc with the funny nose? Thank you, Patch Adams. That's a good example. And even you go back, you look at Norman Cousins and a couple of other people, and what these folks are doing is they're improving their how. And, you know, what we have to do is look at all the different areas of our lives and say, how can I love myself better? How can I eat better? How can I perform and execute my jobs better? How can I, whatever it is you happen to do, how can I be a better mother, a better father, a better provider? How can I do this? What it all comes down to, in order for you to improve your performance, whether it's now at the end of the year, and we're talking about finishing strong, but this is true no matter where you're at. You constantly need to be asking how-related questions that focus in on improvement, on advancement, on betterment. And you know, I'm going to give you a couple of ways with which to be able to do that right now. So let's move on to the next one. Maybe you have a question or two on that, Joe.
Well, I do. Some people set goals, you know, and they're 3/4 of the way into the year, and they're not where they want to be. And the challenge for them, they know what they need to do. They may know how they need to do what they need to do, but when the alarm clock goes off in the morning, they hit the snooze button and they roll over and they say, I'll try tomorrow. And you know, 3/4 of the way through the year, there aren't that many more tomorrows. What would you say to somebody who's struggling with that personal inner fire?
Joe, I'm pretty black and white when it comes to, you know, I've kind of coined this term that we're all playing a high stakes game of one and done.
Can you say that again? One and done?
Yeah, we're all playing a high stakes game of one and done. That's just the reality. And it's Henry David Thoreau had that old quote. He said, most people go to their graves with their music still in them. And it wasn't too long ago that when my kids got out of just summer break, we're going back to right now. I have a tendency of using pretty dramatic examples to get points across. And I wanted the kids to realize that they need to start planning for the next stage of their life, but also that, you know, how much time is being wasted. And I drove them out to a local cemetery
Hey, Gary, we're losing your sound.
Let me think.
Gary, we can't hear you at all.
Joe, how about?
Is it? Say something, Gary.
Okay, is that better?
Marginally.
Jeepers creepers. I wonder why. Hang on a second. Let me just move to another location in my office. But I think that should do it.
That's better.
Joe?
Okay.
I share with them that story about Thoreau.
Now you're at the graveyard, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And I just said, kids, I said, the greatest, I said to him, I said, there's a lot of people who talk about plagues and about poverty and about all of income inequality and some of the biggest problems that exist on this planet. And I said to him, I said, in my opinion, if you really want to know what it is, guys, I think the greatest problem, the greatest plague of humanity that has existed in the past and right up to this day is untapped human potential. Is that it's true that the vast majority of people will go through their lives with very few things on the highlight reel. They'll have very few checks on the board. And you have to sit back and say, how is it possible that somebody could live 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years with very little to show for it? And the fact of the matter is that they've just reacted to other people's stimuli or situations or what have you, and they never took real control of their own lives. And I said, this is it, guys. You got one shot. We're all going to wind up, fertilizing daisies. That's just the way that it goes. What are you going to do to make your life unique? And then we went home, we sat down and kind of, all of us have a very extensive bucket list. And I think for each one of the kids, we probably knocked off about 40 or 50 things this summer, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to send a message to them. Now, relating it, coming back to everybody here, here's the situation. This is the common element of every single human being. We are playing a high stakes game of one and done. This is it. We don't get another crack at it. What that means is it is our moral responsibility to make the most of this one life that we are given. And we have an opportunity to improve our lives by improving our how. And that's really what it comes down to. If you want better results, better health, a better financial portfolio, a better marriage, become a better reputation, a better doctor, whatever it is going to come down to your ability to improve how you do what you do. You have to implement smarter, better, faster, and much more efficiently. And that's where I park my mind, and that's where I kind of excel at.
Can you give a specific example of somebody putting their foot on the gas, changing their how, and achieving a goal, and what they did?
Yeah, let's go to the next slide and let's talk about this. Okay, there's really in this entire presentation 2 or 3 more slides I'm going to take you through, but I'm going to give you a few examples as it relates to these 4 words. Okay, I want everybody to understand is that everybody is going to have a start to their day and an end to their day. That's just the way it works. We wake up at a certain time and we go to bed at a certain time. So we all have a start and we have a finish. It's what we do in between that determines really our destiny. Now, I love to teach this one example, and it's basically called own your adjectives. And what I mean by that is if you just go out and look at currency, a penny, a nickel, a dime, a quarter, even you start to look at the actual dollar bills and 5s and 10s and 20s and 50s, they were chosen for a reason. So look at the penny in terms of Abe Lincoln. And when this was done, it was they were the gentlemen that were on this currency, and in other countries there's women on them as well. And there were certain virtues that they represented. This is the way with which these things were chosen. So in Lincoln's case, it was tenacity. It was honesty. We have a tendency of remembering Honest Abe and all of that type stuff. And it's
Gary, we've lost your sound again.
Their work and everything else. And what I'm getting at here is, what adjectives describe your morning? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it mediocre? Does it require 4 cups of coffee? Do you just go through the motions? Bottom line is, how do you start your day? Now, Again, we're all playing a high-stakes game of one and done. If you want to get the most out of your life, what you need to do is you need to start fast. And here's why. More than anything else, we need momentum in our day. And the best time to create momentum is with the first crack of the bat, as soon as you get started. So what you want to do is, rather than take on a huge and monumental task, you want to get the natural endorphins working, and you want to get some quick check marks, some activities, some projects done, or whatever the case might be, and start to clear the deck, if you will. You want to do that because, again, it builds that natural sense of endorphins, which is very, very important. And you build on that and build on that. Now, let me focus in on the word finish strong here for just a moment. Now, we are talking about the end of the year, but what's most important when it relates to the idea of finishing is that every phone call, every email, every meeting, every task, every project, every day, it doesn't matter what it is, has an end to it. And you have an opportunity to finish strong. My feeling is everybody is a performance artist, and your performance is constantly on display, much more frequently than, say, a Celine Dion or any type of performer on stage. But the one common element of every world-class performer is they always end strong. They end with a bang. If you look at an Olympic runner running through that tag, they are extending their body as far as they possibly can, their leg, their neck, their arms, what have you. When you see a comedian end his act or her act, they're going to end it with their funniest joke and really just send you out the door laughing. When you watch a performer, a singer of some type like that, again, they're going to end on a real powerful note. So I want you to visualize the exclamation mark and say to yourself, how do you put an exclamation mark at the end of every email? How do you end it with a call to action or some inspiring message or something like that? When you end a meeting, or in this case, when you end the year, how do you put an exclamation mark at the end of the year? And I promise you, it's going to be through consistently displaying excellence in executing at a faster, better, smarter pace, if you will. So that's critical to it.
You know, as you're describing this exclamation point at the end of an email or a phone call or whatever, I'm visualizing all the people who drag out of work at the end of the day saying, "Is it Friday yet?" What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'd say wake up and get a reality check that you're wasting your life with this lousy attitude. And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, listen, life's not gonna, it's one thing to say you've got to change your how. I think it's an easy thing. It almost sounds almost too superficial. But, you know, this is waking up and being a mature adult and realizing that, you know what, you're either you're either focused on the problem or the solution. You're either useful or useless. You're either moving towards or away from your goals. Your attitude is either helpful or hurtful. There's no in between. There's no gray matter when it comes to it. So if someone's got that kind of attitude, they really need to wake up and realize that they're hurting nobody but themselves.
You know, one of the things that you've put together that I think is so impressive is the integrity pledge. Can you say a few words about that? And I'll pull the slide up.
You got it. This is my favorite, so we'll spend some time on it. Joe, when I built the 100-Day Challenge, and you know I spent a lot of time talking about this, but I don't think you're going to hear it explained the way I'm going to do it right now. I am constantly thinking and being asked, why don't people achieve their goals? Why is it someone gets to the end of their life and they don't have much on the highlight reel? Well, I'm going to give everybody the answer, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to change it. So here's the deal. This integrity pledge is something I came up with a number of years back. But ultimately, let's start off with the word commitment. We have all heard commitment issues, and we have a tendency of making a joke about it, that this person or guy or gal or what have you has it. But the fact is, this is an epidemic. This is a plague. This is a disease. Probably one of the greatest problems of humanity is lack of commitment and follow through. So let me give you some meat on the bones to drive this point home. We live right now in a society where you can look up these stats. Each state is different, but the fact is almost 60% of first marriages are ending in divorce. Now, I just want you to think about that number for just a second. If the biggest and the largest and probably the most important commitment that you can make to another human being is that till death do us part, I will be there for you through good times and bad. And when bad times come, it's gone. The commitment's gone. Then if someone is willing to do that,
do you think it's possible that they would be willing to walk away from a diet, walk away from a workout, walk away from a difficult conversation or a difficult challenge? And the answer is, of course. And here's why. When you break big commitments, you automatically compromise your moral character. You do so much collateral damage inside your capacity to achieve than you could ever possibly realize. And the fact of the matter is, we have to have and change the thought pattern as it relates to this, that you should never, ever in your life make a commitment that you're absolutely not committed to honor and lay in front of a bus for. It's that important. Because when you dishonor your commitments, you compromise your self-esteem, you throw your reputation under the bus, you undermine and you give people reasons, justifiable reasons to question the quality of your character and the integrity of your word. That is not a very smart move. And you want to know something, Joe? This is what you would call in tennis an unforced error. The amount of unforced errors that people make in their lives through not honoring commitments is astonishing. Next, promises. People have made promises to themselves to lose weight, to improve their marriage, to be a better mother, mom, dad, or what have you, or whatever the case, to stop spending as much and being more of a saver and everything else. And they break them. It's almost as if promises have become like disposable razors. When they become inconvenient or difficult, we discard them, walk away from them. But the same principle applies. If you make a promise to yourself, at this moment forward, no one could ever say, no one's ever told you this, the importance of it. You never said it with this kind of level of conviction. But the problem is, or should we say, the opportunity is just this. Don't make a promise to yourself or another human being that you're not going to honor. And the same thing when it comes to goals. The amount of people who have started diets and walked away from them, who set goals and haven't achieved them, and who now look at it and laugh when they get to a new year or what have you and say, well, I've got the same goals this year as I did last year or the last 20 years. And they think it's funny. It's a crime the way people respond. So if you want an immediate way to turn your life around, start honoring your commitments, start keeping your promises, and achieve your goals. You do that, and then you slowly and quickly start to gradually build upon that. Your confidence builds, your internal fortitude builds, who you are as a human being, your capacity grows. And all of that is a net positive effect for you, for the beneficiaries of your action, but even more importantly, for your self-esteem and for your ultimate legacy.
One of the things that you often hear is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't believe that at all, but I think the road to hell, if there is one, is paved with broken promises. And so anybody who keeps these three elements of your integrity pledge, as you said, they're laying a foundation for a much better life.
You know, I hate to kind of feel like I'm throwing everybody under the bus or anything. But what I want to say is, we have a tendency of using this word integrity and judging other people harshly. I mean harshly. But we really never take the time to examine our own soul, our own intentions, our own behavior, our own results, and really ask ourselves, how much integrity have I basically have I put behind my commitments, my promises, the intentions, the goals, the things I said I'm going to do? And the reality is, there is a commitment deficit. There's an integrity deficit for most of us. But again, you're going to run into challenges. And this is why it's so important, Joe. Goal setting and finishing strong is going to require a superhuman effort. It's going to require more than what you've currently displayed. It's going to require greater sacrifice, greater execution, a little bit more time, perhaps even money, whatever the case might be. But it's going to require more of you. And I don't want to disregard that, because that's just the reality of it. But here's the thing. You're either going to suffer the cost of improving your life and making it better, or you're going to suffer the rest of your life and pay the consequences for inaction. But either way, you're going to pay a price. And my advice would be, start right here. Start right here and really give some serious consideration as to what the word integrity means as it relates towards your actions, your commitments, your promises, and each one of the goals that you set. Once you do that, and you start here, because this is the core. I always hate when I hear speakers and presenters and go into meetings And everyone's talking about symptoms and symptoms and symptoms and this and that and everything else. Bottom line is the core, the root, the issue, the ingrown toenail, if you will, is just this. It's an integrity issue that we all must address. And I think once we own up to that, we're in a much better position to move forward, because we prove to ourselves that we have so much more control over our outputs by simply controlling how we think about these three things.
One of the things you talk about, and it's the next slide, is your take on nutrition facts. Can you say a bit about this?
Yeah, this was kind of a fun thing to put together a while back, but the whole idea is we've seen fats and sugars and carbs and everything else that you could possibly imagine on these food charts. But when it comes to success, I think the point is self-evident here. It's going to require everything you've got. So here's a good way of looking at it. You know, all it takes is all you've got. And that's just the reality of it. Success requires that, whether it's a successful body, whether it's a portfolio, whether it's an investment, career, or what have you. It's going to require everything you've got. And I think that's a darn good thing, because, you know, at the end of our lives, you know, I think if we go back and we start to look at some of the old sayings and reevaluate things, we've always heard that the good life is eat, drink, and be merry and all of this type of stuff. But you want to know something? That leads to a hangover. It leads to basically high cholesterol and a whole bunch of other stuff. The good life is hard work, is smart work. The good life is discipline, because I'll be honest with you, if there's no way you can tell me that the good life is any way, shape, or form is going to be associated with lack of commitment, lack of discipline, lack of focus, lack of consistency, or deficits in persistence, hustle, accountability, or any of these things. By deploying these, each one of these, and these are virtues, these are positive, beautiful, gorgeous, nutritious virtues. By applying these things, your life gets better, and it gets better from the inside out. That's exactly the way that it is. Whereas most people are trying to change things or improve things from the outside in, changing a dress, putting on a new coat, getting a haircut, whatever. Those are temporary bandages. That if you want to improve the quality of your life, it's an inside job, and all of these attributes are necessary.
You know, I'm always impressed with people who keep working long after they don't have to. You know, Michael Phelps has a dozen gold medals and he keeps working at it. J.K. Rowling, more money than she could ever spend, and she's still hustling, still consistent, still demonstrating all of these values. And you see it across the board in every profession. You gotta love the work more than just trying to achieve the outcomes. The outcomes take care of themselves if you do the work most of the time. Let's wrap up. Tell us a little bit more about the 100-day challenge.
Well, you know, again, as we started off this whole rodeo, September 22nd begins the countdown. That is the final 100 days of the year. And the best way to describe this is a program that's just flat out execution, that you can get more done in the last 100 days of the year with intense focus by honoring all of those promises, keeping the commitments, and making sure that the three important priority goals that you set, that you actively work on, you're going to get to the end of the year, and if you've got any performance gaps, I promise you're going to close them. If you've been underperforming in any way, you're going to find yourself at the top where you wanted to be all year long. If your numbers, performance ratios, or revenues, or what have you, need a little bit of love and a little bit of improvement, what you're going to find is by deploying these smart, very, very smart execution strategies in a very disciplined and deadline-driven format and environment, that you can't help but improve. And that's obviously what this whole program is all about.
You know, I've taken the course myself. Every year I go through it. And what I find is that format of the 100 days, of one lesson a day for 100 days, each day builds upon the day before. The real challenge I think for me and for a lot of people is maintaining the commitment. You know, the first couple days you're all excited, and then the hard work starts. So what do you say to somebody about how do you sustain that commitment until it's part of your personal DNA?
You know, it's very simple. I recently wrote a post. I don't know if you came across it. It's called Trust the Process, but let me talk about that right now. Everything in life has a beginning, middle, and an end. This phone call, we're coming to the end. We had a beginning about 15 minutes ago. We had a middle, and we're having an end. Every email that you write has a beginning, hello, and it has an end, thank you, or a call to action. This is true of everything. And what I mean by trusting or following the process is just realizing that if you get in the habit and just embrace and wrap your mind around the idea that every task, every phone call, every project, everything that you're engaged with has a beginning, middle, and end. You want to, number one, you always want to execute with excellence, but you always want to bring everything to a successful end. So what I want you to do is just start thinking about, as you go through your day, is you don't want to have open projects. You don't want to have phone calls are not returned. You don't want to have, opened agendas and everything else. The process is real simple. Start and finish strong. Start and finish strong. And you may have 20, 30, 40, or 50 of those horse races throughout the day. And I promise you, throughout the year, you're going to, but the process remains the same. Everything you start is going to get finished. And if you do it faster and you work smarter, everything accelerates. And by the way, let me speak to that, because one thing I'm known for, and people hear me say, is about the importance of speeding things up. So let's just touch on this for just a moment. I am not saying get out of bed, run to the refrigerator, have a glass of water, run back to the bathroom, put your pants on in 30 seconds, whatever. That's not the lunacy that I'm talking about. Is you need to understand is that speed is the beneficiary of efficiency and smart choices. That when you play a strong offense, when you choose initiative over procrastination, when you choose responsibility over excuse making, when you choose discipline over lack thereof, when you choose consistency over being inconsistent, okay? The end result, the net effect is you're going to get more done faster. That's what efficiency is all about. That's what working smart is all about. This is why when I talk about improving your how is the key to your success, by deploying a better offense that is completely absent in devoid, if you will, that has all the negative behaviors associated with procrastination, uncertainty, excuse making, belly aching, and all that type of stuff. The stuff that just wastes so much time. You cannot help but accelerate the rate with which you achieve your goals. That's why I have a tendency of saying you can get more done in 100 days than most people do over the course of 10 years. Look at most people's lives over 10 years. Look at some of your knucklehead relatives or people There's probably hardly anything that they've gotten done. And you'll find that to be very true, case after case after case. So this should be a glorious end to the end of 2018 and a great kickstart for 2019. But here's the thing, and I think that's a great way to look at this, is don't look at this as just how do you finish the year strong? How do you set yourself up for having an astonishing and outstanding 2019? And the fact is, how you start is a representation of how strong you finish. And that's the beautiful part about it. So there's continuity built into what we're talking about right now.
One of the most important benefits that I personally have gotten from the 100-Day Challenge and the supporting resources that you give people is that speed becomes not just a physical quality, but a mental and emotional quality, a sense of urgency that permeates not just the work I do, but everything. The need to be more awake, the need to be more attentive, the need to move faster, the need to make a bigger contribution than what I've been making. It sort of permeates everything. Gary, we're going to wrap up. Let me turn it back over to you for closing comments. But first, I'll mention to everybody listening, Gary's mentioned the 100-Day Challenge. In upcoming issues of the newsletter Spark Plug, I'll have a link to that website so you can learn more about it. And I'll say a little bit more about it. So, Gary, you got the final word.
Well, I'll make it real simple without dragging this thing out. One way or the other, we have to accept the fact that we're going to finish. You're going to finish this year. There will be an adjective associated with it. You get to decide in advance how the year is going to end. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it right now, before we get to September 22nd. You, and only you, get to decide how it's going to end. So my feeling is, it should end strong. It should end with epic accomplishments. It should end with an exclamation mark. And that's as simple as making a choice. So for me, I choose to finish strong. And I certainly hope you do so as well.
Well, and I hope everybody on the call has made that commitment that they're going to start strong before the end of the day, and they're going to finish strong by the end of this year, setting the foundation for next year. Gary, thank you again for all you do to support our work and for everything you do for the people that you serve. And thank you to everybody else on the call. We'll see you next time.